going to take a minute and look at radians versus degrees, particularly when we're doing a calculation. So for part A, let's say we have a function f of x, looks like sine x, and we're going to evaluate this function at x equal pi over 5. Well, first thing we notice here is that this pi over 5 does not have a degree symbol on it. So that automatically makes it radians. If you have an x value that just looks like a number, no units, then it's automatically radians. So if we go ahead and calculate f of pi over 5, which is sine pi over 5, we'll have to just round this off using our calculator, because pi over 5 is not a special angle. It's not a value that we recognize here. But before we do this on our calculator, let's make sure that our calculator is in radian mode. That is because you don't type in the degree symbol when you put the information in your calculator. So your calculator needs to be able to understand whether you're giving it an angle in radians or whether you're giving it in degrees. And the way you communicate that information is by putting your calculator in the right mode. So as long as our calculator is in radian mode, calculate sine of pi over 5, and we should get something around 0.59. All right, so that's one possible way of doing it. Now, if you decided in this problem that you really wanted to work in degrees, there is a way to make it happen. It's going to be a little bit more of a longer calculation, but I'll show you the alternative here. The other thing you could do is you could take this angle here, which is in radians, and we could convert it over to degrees. So we'd have pi over 5 radians. We're going to multiply by 180 degrees over pi radians, because 180 degrees really is the same thing as pi radians. And then we can do a little bit of cancellation here. So the pi radians will cancel out. We can check that 180 divided by 5 gives us 36. Okay, so we've converted it to 36 degrees. So now we could calculate f of 36 degrees should give us the same answer as above. So sine of 36 degrees. You can check on your calculator, comes out to 0.59, but in order to get this answer, our calculator will have to be in degree mode. Otherwise, your calculator will not understand whether you're giving it degrees or radians. So if we look at the bigger view of this problem here, pi over 5 radians is the same angle as 36 degrees. So clearly these two numbers should be the same answer. But the rule here is if you're putting in an angle in radians, your calculator has to be in radian mode. If you're putting in an angle in degrees, your calculator has to be in degree mode. Now, unfortunately, it does get a little bit more complicated than that. Sometimes in calculus, we have to calculate or evaluate functions like, say, x plus sine x. Okay, and let's see if we can evaluate this function here at 36 degrees. So first thing we might do here, just automatically without thinking about it, we might try just plugging in 36 degrees. Let's see what happens. Okay, in terms of our symbols, we'd have 36 degrees plus sine of 36 degrees. And pretty soon here, we're gonna start to be making this grumpy face. This is not a good situation because what we have right now is we have mixed units. Sine of 36 degrees, this is just a number. And this thing here, this is being measured in degrees. So trying to add degrees and numbers together is kind of like trying to add apples and oranges. Can't be done. You've got different units here. So there is a little bit of a trick in this question. we're actually going to have to convert to radians to figure out the answer. At the very beginning of the problem where it asks us to plug in 36 degrees, let's convert this value to radians before we do the calculation. So we're going to multiply our 36 degrees by pi radians, divide it by 180 degrees. Okay, so we just multiplied by 1, but we're now converting the units. And again, you can check that 36 is going to divide evenly into 180. The degrees will cancel out, so we'll just be left with a 5. We really know from part A that this is going to be pi over 5 radians, but it's good to practice the calculation of converting it here. So 36 degrees and pi over 5 radians, two ways of saying exactly the same thing. So instead of evaluating at 36 degrees, we are instead going to plug in pi over 5 radians. Okay, and as long as our number here does not have a degree symbol on it, it's automatically radians. So I don't really need to write radians here. Just going to do f of pi over 5, and plugging in, we get pi over 5 plus sine of pi over 5. So now our units are looking good because pi over 5 is a number, sine of pi over 5 is a number, and we will be able to get a number answer out here. Now let's also make sure that our calculator is in radian mode when we do this, because remember it's going to receive radians inside this trig function here. So because we're calculating sine of pi over 5, we need it to be in radian mode. And we can check, we get an answer of 1.22 approximately. So bottom line here, if you ever end up with a problem where you seem to have degrees and numbers mixed in your answer, and if you are making this sort of grumpy face here when you're doing this calculation, think about converting your value to radians before you even plug it in.